or one quick adjective phrase that is really meaningful to them. So we always think about sanguine, and I would say jolly. That we think about who is the most jolly. Santa is sanguine, or we can say that jolly Santa goes around the world bringing toys to children. And so they can kind of link those two words together. And what does this word mean? Bam, a quick synonym. Same thing in inveigh. You can't get one word, but you can get a phrase. So if I know that the word inveigh means to urge strongly, that's all I have to remember, and so I can just substitute that in and say, oh, if it says inveigh on a test, I'm going to think, oh, they're urging someone strongly to do something. And so again, making those tough words just easy to understand and explain with a quick synonym or synonym phrase. My third point is something that I hope that you're already doing, and it's really to get everyone to reiterate words all of the time. And so not only are you doing it and making those complicated words part of the classroom routine, but students are rewarded for using those words. So every time a kid in my class uses a word, they get a sticker. I buy the sheets of 100 per sheet, and they're really tiny, but every time a kid says a word, they earn some approbation for doing so, and so there's some reinforcement for why should we use these big words, because they will see them and they will become a part of their lexicon, both written and oral. And then for every assignment that students do in my class, they have to use at least 2 or 3 vocabulary words. And so this really gets them in the habit of using vocabulary, and again, really making it meaningful to them, so that if they see it on a test or they see words that are similar, they're no longer intimidated. They just know that that's a part of their writing and reading lives. And then again, if we have discussions in class, they always have to use a vocabulary word when making a discussion point. So vocabulary becomes a really central idea in our classroom no matter what we're talking about. My fourth point, and I'm going to reiterate this point often, is that when they're taking a vocabulary test, I ask them to read the sentence aloud with each vocabulary option. And you'll see this show up again. So here, the more that we say these words aloud and correct ourselves when we're not using them correctly, the more they'll hear what sounds positive and negative. So if students can say that sentence aloud and insert each vocabulary word option into it, then they're going to sort of be able to start trusting their instincts and know what word is going to be best. So that audio component that they're saying the words aloud a lot, tip number 3, and then when they take the test, they insert the words and they say those sentences quietly, but aloud to themselves as well. And then my final point, and I again hope that you're already doing this, is to break down those word parts. So here, when we're talking about the word benevolent comes up in our Level E vocabulary book, and so I say, okay guys, what does benefit mean? Or what does a benign tumor mean? And so they start to go, oh, bene, and they can use even other words in other languages. Bene means good, bueno, bien. And then we say, okay, mal, what does mal mean in Spanish? What does maleficent mean as a character? Somebody is malevolent versus benevolent. How does that work? And so the more that I like to do root studies and prefix and suffix studies when we're learning specific vocabulary words, and then the more that we take those apart, the more that students feel comfortable doing it on their own when it comes to testing days. So those are that's my top 5 handout of just general strategies. And then we came out with some fun tips specifically for the new SAT as well as for the ACT. So I want to go through, you will also be getting these 2 handouts in your email after the webinar, but I want to walk through these with you. So we'll start, you'll see at the bottom with the SAT, and again, like our general strategy says, the question asks you to define a word, replace the original word with each of the answer choices. And so what I did, these are passages from the new SAT, and so we've taken this out. This is a sample passage. One is sometimes asked about the obstacles that confront novice writers who want to start their careers doing good work. Okay, so what does this word novice mean? So we just put talented. One is asked about the obstacles that confront talented writers who want to start their careers doing good work. Starting and talented, not sure. Confront beginning writers who want to start their careers. Ooh, start, begin, that sounds good together. Hardworking writers who want to start their careers doing good work. Well, I can see good work, but starting their careers, novice writers, there's nothing really that works together in terms of context clues. Experienced writers aren't starting their careers. So the best word here is beginning, and I can use my context clues to help me figure that out. And then hopefully that they will start to hear beginning writers starting their careers, doing good work. Those all work together. So that's tip number one that, again, gets repeated a lot because it's a really sort of classic tip. All right, tip number two is about underlining justification for your reasoning. And this is really important no matter what we're doing, whether we're annotating a passage in a book we're reading and writing an essay, we have to bring our support to it. But I really like having students do this in standardized testing because they can really start to see, am I correct or am I not? And the new SAT actually asks you, there's not always, but often there's a follow-up question that says, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So you'll see here that the first question says, Cather characterizes the writing of 20 years ago as, and so we come back over here and we look at the passage, interesting but insubstantial. Okay, so what underlining context clues would help us out here? Worthy of success, highly influential, or condensed and grandiose. And so when I'm looking here, let's see, the writing of 20 years ago, and so the whole aim of that school of writing, let's see.
Go ahead and click the next.
Okay.
It'll show you.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought the answer was there.
And so we can go back through, and I thought we had them underlined too, but alas. And so we can look through and see which point justifies our ideas. Okay, so here we're saying the greatest obstacle writers have today is to get over the grandiose journalistic successes of 20 years ago, stories that surprised and delighted with their sharp photographic detail and were really nothing more than lively pieces of reporting. The whole aim was novelty, never a very important thing in art. They gave us ignoble standards, taught us to multiply our ideas instead of condense them. They concocted a story out of every theme. They got returns, but their work, when one looks back on it, now that novelty is upon when counted so much is gone, inconsequential and journalistic. The merit of a good story is that it should be intensely interesting and pertinent and have dissipated by tomorrow. So here, interesting but insubstantial, we've got some things that we can underline. And so here, this is not the same answer to the question. But when we go back through, the keys are in there. So they have to justify their answer first, and then they can go back and which ones did I underline already? I can answer question number 3 then. So then again, there's going to be questions, this is my third tip, that basically when we're thinking about themes or main ideas, we want to look at each topic sentence and each conclusion sentence. So what I did is I just basically pulled out the topic sentences and the conclusion sentences from that last passage. And so when the question asks the central claim of the passage, we can just look there because students get overwhelmed. They don't want to reread the entire passage. So instead, we're sort of looking here and overall, obstacles, art should simplify, the discarded sketches that were made before. Any first-rate novel must have the strength of a dozen fairly good stories. So overall, we're saying one good story is a product of many stories. Writing for the market demand is never good writing. Good writing is simple and uncompromised. Journalistic writing loses its relevancy. So we need to, if we're looking at the topic sentences and the conclusion sentences, we can really see her overall point about what is good writing. All right, and so that here, that good writing is simple and uncompromised. It's got to be that good story is a product of many stories. So when we got to kind of look at the whole overall. And so once we get there, when they're looking at the whole overall theme, where a final bonus point that I made in that sheet is when we think about a theme, I tell my kids to think about the idea and the attitude. So what is the point overall? What is Willa Cather saying about writing? Is she criticizing the work of recent writers? Is she advising writers on what is good writing? Is she comparing good writing to work of art? Or is she persuading writers not to write for profit, which I think a lot of writers even do today? But if we look overall about what the point is, we go back to those topic sentences and we are advising here writers on what is good writing. And so right there, that's our theme and attitude. And so once we get there, those are our sort of 3 key points and their bonus point, theme equals idea plus attitude. Let's move on to the ACT. which is I use sample passages that the Sadler team has come up with. And so you can see here we have specific examples to justify that are in the handout. And so again, we're asking for what does ignoble most nearly mean. So we're defining the word by replacing the original word with each answer choice. All right, so we can come in and again say commenced early in life, ignoble. Is that difficult? Is that lofty? Is that low? Or is that realistic? And you can substitute and read into your context clues to help you make the point. Again, they're going to ask you to underline to justify your reasoning. So here the author feels the young men who are to be leaders should, and then we have to underline what supports our best answer. So what should young men do? 1, commence early in life with the goal of getting along easy, shunning work and casting away for the easy way. So if we're looking at here, spend their hours learning to be leaders, go into debt, be good at creating jobs, never waste money. We have to get the rest of the passage there to back ourselves up. And then here again, in terms of theme or main idea, we're looking at the topic sentence and the conclusion sentences for each paragraph. So when we look at this overall, sow your well oats early, then settle down to hard work. We've got the examples here. Will they be? No, never. Save money, do your job, and be trustworthy. So here he makes the point. And overall, altogether, we're talking about contingent upon emotions, aspirations, determinations. Started with determination and step by step began to master them, became wealthy. Debt is the greatest burden. Will the men who are leaders? No, they will not. So overall, what do we have here? We don't have anything about sowing our wild oats early, saving money, doing our job to the best of ability, and being trustworthy. We've got those in the topic sentences completely. Do not go into debt or buy a large house and keep your family happy. There's not anything here about keeping your family happy, although it sounds good. When we're just looking at our topic and conclusion sentences, we can see what the overall point is versus one that might sound good. Be a good citizen, don't take on more work than you can handle. Again, if we're just looking at these sentences, we don't have to do too much thinking, but we can say, all right, there's nothing about a whole lot of more work than you can handle. And then a bonus tip for the ACT, there's a lot of inferences that come in the ACT, so they're going to ask you about reasonable inferences. So what does that mean? We always have to talk about the language of the test. Reasonable guess based on the information provided. And so we have an example that you can work through there as well with students to help them figure out what that means. All right, so here you see what you're going to get, the top 5 tips that we went over, the top 3 tips with this passage from the new SAT that you can work on, and then the top 3 tips for the ACT. And Laura, I'm going to let you take it away to talk about the new vocabulary workshop book.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. I'm just going to enlarge my screen here. So those tips were really important. I know it's hard to follow Sarah sometimes when she's reading it and you're trying to read it, and of course she's read it several times and you haven't read it at all. So I do want to just introduce you to Sadler's new test prep book from Vocabulary Workshop. This is a program that, a booklet that we produce because of the new SAT and the new reading and writing part of the ACT. What this book is a test prep book with lots of practice. You get 5 SAT test preps, and you get 5 ACT test preps, and you have 1 cumulative test prep for ACT and 1 for SAT. So just to back up a little bit, the types of questions that Sarah has reviewed with you are the same types of questions that you would find on the SAT. The newness here is that those vocabulary words are not just obscure words. They are words in context of passages. So the more that we build up students' experience with reading words that they don't know in passages, in context, the better off they will be. Some of the writing questions on the SAT ask students to improve the word choice. Again, vocabulary. They'll need to choose the best words of the choices given to them based on the text that is around those words. So again, everything is in context. Everything is about the text that the students are reading. So all the passages in our new Vocabulary Workshop Test Prep book come from excerpted, previously published text. We've adapted them using our words from Vocabulary Workshop and included them into the previously published text. So here's an example of the SAT Test Prep 1. This is a passage, a previously published passage, The Rise of Silas Latham, and it was published in 1885. The types of questions, actually, you can see, are very similar to what Sarah showed you. The first one, Latham's childhood can best be described as. You'll need to know what harsh means, what conventional means, what underprivileged means, wholesome, adventurous. You need to know these words. And the second is the evidence-based type of question. So why did you choose that? What provides the best evidence for the previous question? In the ACT test prep, for instance, we have an excerpt from Jane Austen, and these types of questions differ a little bit. The word, for instance, the word adjourn most nearly means, and it has the 4 choices, but you're going to need to know what those choices mean, so you may have to go back to the passage. Now, in the ACT, they do number or alphabetize their questions differently, so we do follow their rule of A, B, C, D, and then F, G, H, J, so that students do become familiar with their identifying the selection. But the second question here, number 6, is a little bit more than just the vocabulary. And as these exams are being written in for today's standards, this is more about what reading and comprehension is about. It's what does the author, how does the author describe Emma's feelings? So you're given choices to see how the student comprehends what they've read. The SAT cumulative test is based on 2 passages, so we have paired passages, and the group of questions that follow are evidence-based or text-based questions. Readers or students have to go back to the text to find the answer of the questions. For instance, some of the questions you have to have read both of the passages. And I think that that's a pretty good strategy because one is related to the other. So for comprehension as well as for background knowledge, it would be helpful for the student to read both passages and then answer the questions. And for the ACT cumulative test, I highlighted here that humanities is part of the ACT types of exams or types of passages, topics. So we do include, a passage from Aristotle, a passage from Elizabeth Atkins. The questions are a little bit set up differently. They do tell the students what passage that you'll find the answer in. So that's just kind of the summary of our new test prep for SAT and ACT exams, and that's available. More information and online samples, you can request an online sample at savalierschool.com/vocabulary workshop at VWEE. So I'm going to pass it back over to Sarah, and so that you can go ahead and get some more ideas for tomorrow's class.
All right. So let's see. I'm going to pull this back up over here. And I really kind of want to talk about the vocabulary video game, because not only do I have great test prep ideas, but it's really about making vocabulary fun and meaningful for you. So I just wanted to share one great activity. And again, these are activities that I come up with in my brain, and then the graphics team at Sadler makes beautiful. And they're all able to be downloaded by you for free. They work in color, they work in black and white, which is what I usually have to do at my school. So I wanted to show you this vocabulary video game. And I was thinking about how much my students love to play video games. And so I thought, well, if they could design a video game, but there's not a lot of time, nor are there a lot of computers necessarily in my classroom, but they sort of design this video game and they have to incorporate vocabulary. So you'll notice that the directions ask them, write a rule that corresponds to the shape in each box. And so then if a player lands on a gold coin, they have 20 seconds to use a vocabulary word in a sentence. The kids get to make up whatever rules they want. That's just one example. And then they get to create these little avatars and name them with vocabulary words. So this can be the Wizard of Approbation, or the dynamic and fearless a knight. And so this is the game board that everyone gets to have, and so then they're going to use their rules that they created to play the game. So every game is going to look different, even though the game board looks the same. And so if one kid's direction says that when they land here, they have to use a vocabulary word in a sentence, or they give a specific word that they have to use. Or you can say for the coin that unless they can define the vocabulary word the opposing team gives them, they have to go back a space. So the kids get to make up the rules, and then they get to play this really fun and beautifully designed game that incorporates vocabulary, but they're having so much fun they're not really thinking about all of the vocabulary that they're learning. So that's just one idea, one game that I wanted to share with you to whet your appetites, and you'll go back and learn more when you get the handouts, and then just go to vocabgal.com. So hopefully you've walked away and you have some skills and strategies. You have those handouts to help your students do well on the high-stakes tests. And then I wanted to show you again where to get what you need. So you just literally can Google Vocab Gal, or you can go to sadlerschool.com, and you'll see that here I am at the top, Vocab Gal, and then when you, yep, there's sadlerschool.com. And then this is really, I wanted to highlight this because I have the games like I just talked about. I have lots of activities that involve writing with vocabulary. Every week we do a SAT Word of the Week, and so you can look at the history of those. I have lots of great author interviews with everyone from John Green and James Dashner to Jarrett Krasoska, who's an elementary author. So all kinds of fun interviews that the kids will actually listen to when a really cool author tells them why they should learn words, not just their really awesome and cool teacher. I also have some teaching strategies because I mentor a lot of teachers, and so I wanted to sort of provide that same support for you, whether you're a mentor or need some mentoring if you're a young teacher and want some great ideas. And then in terms of seasons, I have lots of seasonal resources for the fall, and then for the winter and spring, and even into the summer. So I also wanted to highlight at the top here, I go a lot myself to the core grammar and core literacy resources because not only do I know the lovely ladies who put these together, but they have really awesome ideas. And I just used one the other week about literature circles from the core literacy, and the grammar activities. I always need more help with grammar. So it's not just me publishing great and fun free downloads. We've got a lot more at the Sadler School homepage, and then the resources for everybody, if you just want everything in one fell swoop, are right here under the resources tab. So again, the author interviews. And then these, again, are the downloads you're going to get. I even added a bonus vocabulary activity right here, the Why Words Matter, if you want another fun activity to use. And I really just hope that you can walk away with some easy and quick strategies. It's going to make more sense on the tip sheet than it made when I was trying to explain it, and you can walk through it a little slower than I did. But it really, there's a lot of great stuff here, and I'm excited that everyone gets the resources for free anytime they want.
Thank you, Sarah. And these are worth downloading and trying in your classroom tomorrow. Again, you can get them at sadlerschool.com and then go to the blogs all the way to the right and go to the blogs. We have a couple of questions, Sarah, so if you're ready.
Ready.
One of these questions is, I see the books for SAT. You refer to, was this for level D? Okay, these are the books that were for level D. Are there other different levels? I'm going to take that question if you don't mind, Sarah. Yes, we do have different levels for this test prep book, for the SAT, ACT test prep. Levels D, E, F, and G are available right now. Level H will be available next July, as well as ABC, which is 6, 7, and 8. But right now, D through G is available right now. And you can go on our website and you can read all about it at sadleyyourschool.com/VWEE. Okay, we have another question. Where do you get all of your vocabulary words? I get mine from my literature book, but it seems like it's never enough.
I completely agree. And I used to do that. I used to try and cull together a list from the literature book in the little boxes that gave the definitions that I never liked. And I really, here I am for Sadler, but I looked at every single book, and I go every year to NCTE, and I look at every single book. And I love the Sadler product because it has 20 words in a unit, and we're actually creating, I can't tell too much, I guess, Laura. Don't reveal too much. But I love the books. There's plenty of words, and I can differentiate where if I have students who can only handle doing 5 words, they only do 5 of the 10 I do for the week, 20 for the 2 weeks. And they pull the words directly from the SAT and ACT and words that are most relevant and meaningful and most often used. So some of the words do seem obscure and words that I didn't know before, but as soon as we start using them and reading them, they pop up everywhere. So I pull all of my vocabulary from the vocabulary book, and every day I do 2 words a day. So we cover 10 per week. And we really learn them and play with them and work with them. And I'm excited about the test prep booklets because the kids get to see real life passages from classic works of literature that they're going to have to know for a standardized test, and they have a chance to work with them and see their vocabulary being used in these classical texts. So they can say, yeah, these words actually show up, and then they can feel comfortable answering questions, and they have a little bit of an advantage because the passages I start with are obviously the ones we've already learned the vocab for, so they are more comfortable. And then I sometimes give them a later passage of words we haven't covered yet and say, okay, guys, you feel comfortable now, but you know what the questions look like and how to tackle these questions. So I'm excited about the books, Laura.
Yeah, it seems like everybody is. I have a couple of questions here. One is, I already have the whole series A to H for Vocabulary Workshop. Do I need to buy this new one? And the answer is yes, because this is the test prep. The others have very limited, preparation for the SAT and the ACT. So this is particularly written for the types of questions that are on the new SAT and ACT, as well as the types of passages too. In our program, we do believe in teaching vocabulary in context. So we do have an opening passage. It has most of the words in it. We do have exercises, so multiple exposure to the words. We use context clues in the sentences that these words do appear in these exercises. But this new addition to the series is beneficial for those of the that are taking the SAT and the ACT. I mean, it's interesting because most assessments now, end-of-year assessments, have the same type of questions for vocabulary. They're all based on the text, on the passage that the students have to read. So we have one more question, I think. Or two. Okay, a couple. How much time, Sarah, do you spend on vocabulary each day or during the week?
I get this question all the time. I have about 47 minutes in my class period, and I spend about 5 or 10 minutes on vocabulary depending on the day, which seems like a large chunk, but I try and maximize every day. As soon as the kids walk in, the bell has not rung yet, and they take out their independent reading, and they're reading as soon as they walk into class until 5 minutes after the bell has rung, and then we switch gears quickly to their vocabulary books, and we work through our 2 words of the day. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10 minutes. We go quickly, but I want to make sure that they understand each word and how to use it. And then we have a good 30, 40 minutes left, depending on the day, to do what else we are working on. And again, every time we're talking about, whether we're talking about a whole class read or we're analyzing a nonfiction passage, we are always using our vocabulary throughout the rest of the class. So I spend 5 to 10 minutes direct instruction on vocabulary, but then I encourage it to be used throughout the rest of the period.
Question, how do you make sure that the kids with learning disabilities get better at vocabulary? And they're looking for advice on that.
Okay. And that's hard. So I try and limit the amount of words that the kids with learning disabilities have. So that, like I said before, if there are 10 words in our unit for the week, we do 5 for those students. And so what I may do is say, okay, the first 2 days, 2 or 3 days, that the students are learning the new words along with the other peers, and then the other 2 days, when the kids are learning new words, I ask them to do a review activity or write new sentences with their words. And I always try to make it meaningful for those students. So I ask them to write about their favorite subject, whether it be the Kardashians or about monster trucks or about a movie that they love watching over and over again, or World of Warcraft. Whatever they're interested in, I ask them to use their vocabulary to write about what they love, and that tends to engage them more. And then finally, there's a lot of great activities and games on the website, and I feel like the kids learn the most when they're using them in games and activities and making it relevant to them. So the more that they can continue to say the words aloud, hear me say the words out loud, think about the words in context of what they love, and then complete games and activities that they enjoy, I think that's how I get them to learn.
Great, great, sure. That all makes sense.
Okay, good.
Thank you for helping us organize our lives. Sarah, that's it. We don't have any more questions, but if everyone on the line, if you do come up with a new question, please don't hesitate to contact Sarah through vocabgal.com. You can contact me at legan@sadlier.com, Laura Egan@sadlier.com. We want to thank Sarah very much for sharing her ideas. She comes up with new ideas all the time. She's always enthusiastic. She's always generous in sharing them with us. So, Sarah, thanks.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to answer questions. Feel free to tweet me as well, and hopefully I'll see some of you at NCTE, because I'm excited to go to Atlanta in November.
That's terrific. And thank you for all of you that have joined us this afternoon. We realize how busy your days are, and especially this time of year where you're getting started back up in the saddle again. So we will have several other webinars with Sarah in the next 2 months, so you'll all be invited to them and hopefully pick up some new ideas. So thanks again for joining us, everyone, and have a good evening. Bye now.